The lights in the dark market were dim and cold. Shadows moved across the floor as buyers passed from cage to cage. Some laughed, some argued over prices, and some just watched with silent eyes. This was a secret place, hidden in the deep corners of space where no laws existed and no mercy was shown. In the middle of the market stood a glass cage. Inside it sat a girl, young and thin, her skin marked with bruises and scars. Her name was Kira, but no one here called her that. To them, she was just Lot 47, personal use. She didn't cry anymore, not after being sold 4 times in 2 years. She had learned that tears only brought more pain, more beatings, more hunger, more cold nights on metal floors. A heavy alien with green skin and 4 eyes stepped close to the cage. He looked at her, sniffed and laughed. "Too small, too broken," he said in a deep voice, then walked away like she was trash. Another alien came, then another, some insulted her. Others didn't even bother to look. The auctioneer, a fat slug-like creature, hit the cage with a stick and shouted, "She may be weak, but she's obedient, doesn't speak unless told. Very quiet, very clean." Still, no one offered a price. Kira sat with her head down, trying to disappear. She hated this place, hated her life, and hated that she still hoped someone might help her. Then, the room went quiet. A single pair of footsteps echoed on the metal floor, slow, heavy boots, not rushed, not nervous. All the aliens turned to see who had entered. It was a human. Humans were rare these days. After the Great War, most had been wiped out, scattered, enslaved, or simply forgotten. This one looked like he didn't care at all. In a dark coat, face half covered with a mask, his eyes were the only part that showed, and they didn't look cruel. They looked tired. He stopped in front of Kira's cage, looked at her for a long moment. She didn't look back at first, but when she did, her breath caught. He wasn't like the others. His eyes didn't stare at her body, didn't scan her like a thing. They looked straight into her eyes like he saw her, not just the slave. The auctioneer chuckled nervously. "Ah, good eyes, sir. A fine product. Very cheap today. Half price even." The human said nothing. He pulled out a small black credit chip and handed it over. The auctioneer blinked. You buy without a test? Without asking?" Still, the man said nothing. The chip beeped, and the cage door opened with a hiss. Kira flinched, expecting a hand to grab her hair or a collar to be thrown at her. But nothing came. The man stepped aside, held out a hand, and nodded. She stared at him, afraid it was a trick. Slowly she stood, her legs weak, and stepped out of the cage. Together, they walked through the crowd. No one stopped them. No one laughed, just silence. When they reached the docking bay, she looked back. The market disappeared behind a heavy metal door. Inside the ship, she waited for him to speak, but he didn't. He guided her to a small room with a bed, a blanket, and a bottle of clean water. She stared at the water like it was treasure. He turned to leave, but before he did, she asked in a soft, shaky voice, "Why, didn't you hurt me?" He paused, looked at her again, and spoke for the first time. "Because you've had enough hurt." Then, he left the room. Kira sat on the bed, her fingers shaking as she touched the blanket. It was warm. She had no idea who this human was, or what he truly wanted. But for the first time in years, she didn't feel afraid. She whispered to herself, "What kind of man are you?" Outside, the man sat in the cockpit, staring at the stars. His name was Alex. He didn't save people often, not anymore. He had seen too much, lost too much. But something in her eyes, something broken, but not gone, had pulled him in. He leaned back in his seat, closed his eyes, and let the silence take him. In the darkness of space, 2 lives had just changed forever. One was a girl who had lost everything. The other, a man who no longer believed in saving anyone. And yet, somehow, they had found each other. Asterisk. The ship's door closed with a soft hiss behind her. Kira stood still in the entry hallway, unsure if this was real or another cruel dream. The walls were smooth, silver gray, lit by warm lights hidden in the ceiling. It was quiet. Too quiet. No shouting, no footsteps, no commands barked through speakers. She held her breath, waiting for the human Alex to say something, but he simply walked ahead and motioned for her to follow. Kira moved carefully, her bare feet silent on the smooth floor. She kept her eyes down, hands folded in front of her, ready for punishment if she made a mistake. He led her to a small room. It had a bed, soft, clean sheets, a folded towel, and a metal door with a symbol she didn't recognize. "Wash first," Alex said, then pointed to the door. "Bathroom, soap and water inside." She blinked, confused. No one had told her to wash before, not unless she was being shown to a new owner for personal use, but his voice was flat, not mocking, not excited, just calm. She stepped into the bathroom and froze. There was a mirror on the wall. She hadn't seen her own face in months. The girl staring back had tangled dark hair, hollow eyes, and a thin, bruised neck. She looked like a ghost. Tears filled her eyes, not from pain but from the warm water pouring from the shower head. She washed slowly, carefully, afraid the warmth would disappear, afraid it was a trick. But no one opened the door, no voice shouted, and no hands dragged her away. When she stepped out, clean and wrapped in the towel, fresh clothes lay folded on the bed. She dressed quickly and sat down, unsure what to do next. Minutes passed. Then the door slid open. Alex stood there, holding something. A plate of food, real food. She stared, her body frozen. He placed the plate on the table beside her bed. "Eat," he said, and turned to leave again. Her voice came out before she could stop it, small and shaking. "Why are you doing this?" He paused at the door, didn't turn, just said, "Because you're not what they say you are." Then he left. Kira stared at the plate for a long time. A thick slice of bread, a piece of fruit, and warm soup in a bowl. She picked it up slowly, ate carefully, her eyes watching the door. Nothing bad happened. No shock collar, no command, no threat. Later, when she stepped out of her room, she saw him sitting in the control room, surrounded by glowing panels and blinking lights. He didn't notice her at first, just kept working on a small panel, wires spread on the table. She stepped closer, her voice still soft. "Do you need help?" He looked up, surprised, then nodded slightly. "If you want to." She sat beside him, watching how his fingers moved, how he fixed tiny circuits and adjusted metal pieces with care. He showed her how to connect the power lines, how to check for damage. Not once did he touch her, not even by accident. "Where are we going?" she asked after a while. "Nowhere special," he replied. "Just away." That answer was strange, but it gave her a strange sense of peace. Away sounded better than anywhere she had been. As hours passed, she watched him work. He was quiet, focused, and didn't ask her to do anything she didn't want to. He didn't smile, but his presence wasn't cold. It felt like sitting beside a fire after a long, cold night. Suddenly, a loud beep echoed through the ship. Alex stood up fast, impressed. A button on the console. Kira watched the screen light up with a message. "Distress signal detected. Slave transport damaged. Coordinates attached." Her chest tightened, her hands clenched. "Is it real?" "Could be," Alex said. "Could also be a trap." He leaned forward, thinking. Then he said something she didn't expect. "You decide? Should we go?" She looked at him, confused. "Why me?" "Because it's your life too now," he replied. Her lips parted, but no words came. She had never been asked to choose anything before. After a long moment, she whispered, "We should go, if someone is hurting like I was." "We can't ignore it," Alex nodded. "All right, hang on." The ship rumbled as he adjusted course, stars shifting in the window. Kira sat in the seat beside him, holding the edge tightly, not from fear, but from purpose. She didn't know where this journey would lead. But for the first time, she wasn't just cargo. She was a person. And beside her sat a human who didn't treat her like less. The ship moved through the stars, heading toward danger, but also toward something greater. And deep inside, a fire began to burn in her chest. a fire called hope. The stars outside were quiet, but inside the ship, something had changed. Since the moment they answered the distress signal, Kira had felt a strange weight in her chest. Memories returned: chains, dark rooms, the sound of other girls crying, the smell of burning metal. Alex said nothing as he adjusted the ship's course, but she noticed the tight grip he had on the controls. His jaw clenched, his eyes darker than before. The signal had come from an old cargo hauler drifting near a shattered moon. No signs of life, no movement, just a silent beacon flashing over and over. "This could be a trap," Alex said. "Stay close to the ship when we dock." Kira nodded, her hands shaking slightly, but her feet steady as she followed him when the docking clamp connected. The doors slid open with a hiss. The air inside the old ship was cold. Too cold. They stepped into the hallway, lights flickering, walls rusted. Blood on the floor, not fresh, but not old either. Kira's heart pounded as she saw a familiar mark painted on the wall, a symbol used by slavers. "I know this ship," she whispered. I was transferred here once." Alex turned, eyes sharp. "Are you sure?" She nodded slowly. "They kept us in the cargo bay. It was always dark. They never gave names, only numbers." They reached the main cargo door. Alex tapped into the panel, but just as the door began to open, boom, an explosion rocked the floor beneath them. The door slammed shut. Lights went red and alarms screamed from behind them. Shadows moved, armed figures wearing masks and armor. "Bounty hunters, run!" Alex shouted, grabbing her hand and pulling her down the hall. They dove behind a fallen crate as energy bolts flew past. Kira pressed her back against the wall, breathing fast. Her mind screamed that this was it. It was happening again. But then she saw him. Alex wasn't panicked. His eyes were focused, his hands fast, pulling a blaster from a hidden compartment on his belt. He moved like a soldier. He wasn't just a kind man, he was trained. He took 2 quick shots, knocking down one of the attackers. "Go through the vent," he told her, pointing to a small hatch on the wall. "Follow the orange pipes. They lead back to the ship." "I'm not leaving you," she said, her voice trembling but firm. "I'll catch up," he promised. "But I need you safe." She nodded, crawled into the vent, and vanished into the dark. Alex turned and faced the hunters, fire in his eyes. But what he didn't know was that Kira didn't run all the way back. She stopped near the ship's back panel, found a small storage locker, and opened it. Inside was a broken shock rifle. She remembered how one of her captors used to brag about it. Her fingers moved quickly, fixing the power cell the way she had seen Alex do many times, back in the cargo bay. Alex was pinned behind a large crate, outnumbered, cornered. One of the hunters spoke in a deep voice. "You shouldn't have taken her, human. She was property." Alex growled. "She's not property." The hunter laughed. "Then you'll both die worthless." Before the shot was fired, a sudden blast hit the hunter from the side. Kira stood in the doorway, holding the rifle with shaking hands. "You'll die before I go back," she said through clenched teeth. Alex used the moment of surprise to attack. He moved like lightning, taking down the last 2 hunters with fast, brutal precision. Then silence. Only the soft hum of the failing ship remained. He turned to her, blood on his face, eyes wide. "You shouldn't have come back," she looked at him, tears in her eyes. "And leave you like they left me?" He stepped closer, slowly, gently took the rifle from her hands. She was shaking all over, but still standing. "You saved me," he said. "You saved me first," she replied. "I just returned the favor." They walked back to the ship together, side by side, as the cargo bay behind them burned. Kira looked up at the stars through the viewing screen. She wasn't weak anymore, and Alex wasn't alone anymore. That night, he cleaned her wounds, and she cleaned his. There were no more walls between them, only the silence of 2 souls who had seen too much but found something real. Not chains, not commands, but choice. He gave her a blanket, and she offered him something more powerful: trust. They didn't say much as they sat in the control room again. Just watched the stars pass, but in that quiet moment, Alex knew something had changed. Kira wasn't just someone he saved. She was someone who fought beside him. And maybe, just maybe, someone he was meant to keep fighting for. The stars had changed. For the first time in her life, Kira wasn't running from something. She was flying towards something unknown. Days passed after the attack, but Alex didn't ask questions. He let her sleep as much as she needed, fed her, and fixed the ship in silence. But on the fourth morning, he said something unexpected. "There's a place I want to show you." Kira looked up from her seat near the storage crate, her fingers still bandaged from the fight. "What kind of place?" He didn't answer right away. He just entered coordinates and pressed the throttle. The ship jumped into hyperspace, the stars stretching like rivers of light when they dropped out. A green and blue planet floated ahead, partly hidden by rings of golden dust. Kira leaned forward, her breath catching. "It's beautiful," Alex nodded. "No name on the maps. It was a failed colony long ago. Most people don't even know it exists." As they entered the atmosphere, clouds opened to reveal forests that went on forever. Waterfalls spilling down cliffs, and large flowers glowing in the shadows. He landed the ship in a wide-open field filled with soft grass and singing insects. The door opened with a hiss, warm air rushing inside. Kira stepped out slowly, her feet touching real soil for the first time in years. The air smelled like rain and fruit. She blinked at the sunlight, her body unsure if it was safe to relax. Alex walked ahead, hands in his pockets, like he belonged to the land itself. She followed him through tall trees and down a narrow trail. Then he stopped and pointed. In the middle of the forest was a small cabin, made of old wood and stone, moss-covered but still standing strong. "I built this a long time ago," he said, "when I thought I could disappear forever." Kira stepped inside. Her fingers touched the wooden wall. It felt alive. There was a bed, a table, old books, and tools in a corner. A window looked out over a small pond where fish swam under floating leaves. "Why are you showing me this?" she asked softly. Alex sat on the edge of the table, eyes on the pond. "Because I want you to know what freedom feels like." Her heart beat faster. She walked to the door and looked outside. Birds flying past the treetops. "I thought freedom would be louder," she whispered. "But this, it's quiet." He smiled, just a little. "The quiet is the best part." They stayed in the cabin for days. Alex taught her how to grow food, how to fix broken wires without sparks, how to track footsteps in the forest. Kira began to smile again, real smiles, not the empty ones used to avoid punishment. She laughed when Alex fell into the pond trying to catch a fish. He pretended to be annoyed, but smiled behind his soaked hair. One night, as they sat by the fire, Kira asked him, "Why did you stop fighting? You're strong, smart. You could have saved more than just me." Alex stared into the flames. "Because the last people I tried to save didn't make it." His voice was low, pained. "I thought saving no one was better than losing them all." She reached across the space between them, placed her hand over his. "You didn't lose me," she said. He looked up, eyes meeting hers, before he could speak. A soft beep echoed from his wrist device, a signal unknown ship approaching. He stood quickly, checking the data. Stealth ship, no ID tag. "Someone's tracking us." Kira stood too, heart pounding. "Is it the slavers?" "Could be," Alex said. "Or worse, someone hunting both of us now." They moved fast, grabbed weapons, packed supplies, and shut down the cabin systems. As they reached the ship, Kira turned to look back. She didn't want to leave. This place felt like a memory that had finally become real. But she also knew something else. Home wasn't a place anymore. It was a person. She followed Alex into the ship, took her seat, and prepared for what came next. As they lifted off, the hidden garden vanished behind trees, silent and safe for now. But neither of them were safe anymore. They had poked a hole in the darkness, one that others wanted to close. And yet, even with danger closing in, Kira felt something strong rise inside her. She had found a reason to fight, not for escape, not for revenge, but for a future worth living. The stars were gone. Outside the ship's window, only darkness moved. Alex kept the lights off, hands steady on the controls. Kira sat beside him, her eyes fixed on the radar, watching the blinking red dots slowly closing in. They had stayed too long on the hidden planet, a mistake. Now the quiet life they tasted was gone, replaced with the sound of warnings and shadows hunting them. How long until they reach us? She asked. Minutes, he said. They're faster, probably bounty hunters, maybe worse. Kira tightened her fingers on the seat. Are we going to run? Alex shook his head. No, if we run, we'll lead them to others. There's only one choice now. Fight, she said quietly. He nodded. We've done it before. But Kira wasn't the same girl from the cage. She had fought back in the cargo ship, held a weapon, bled, and survived. This time she wouldn't hide. The ship rumbled as Alex dropped them from the sky onto another forested world, one with deep valleys and no signals. He landed in a dry canyon and powered everything down, leaving only emergency lights on. Then they prepared. Kira helped set traps. Using the old scrap they kept, trip wires, gas pulses, shock mines. Alex gave her a smaller blaster, taught her how to reload it, how to keep steady when your hands tremble. As they worked, she asked him, "Will you kill them all?" "Only the ones who won't stop," he said. "Some of them are just doing what they're paid for. And what are we fighting for?" She asked, her voice low. He paused, looked at her, then replied, "For your right to choose, even if they think you don't have one." Night fell fast, and the sky filled with smoke-colored clouds. Then the sound came, engines low. Quiet, deadly. Kira looked up from behind a rock, her heart pounding. The bounty hunter ship touched down like a claw on steel, armored, black, and too large for comfort. Figures came out, 6 of them, tall, masked, armored in matte red plating. They moved like predators, scanner sweeping the canyon. "They've been trained to track us," Alex said. "Stay close, follow my signal." But something went wrong. One of the traps triggered too early. The blast echoed too loud, fire lighting the canyon. The hunters turned fast, weapons raised. Alex shouted, "Go, now!" He opened fire, drawing attention. Kira ran along the canyon wall, heart racing, every breath a prayer. 2 hunters followed her. She ducked into a narrow cave they hadn't seen before. Waiting in the shadows, when one passed by, she stepped out and fired. The bolt struck the side of the armor, not fatal, but strong enough to knock him down the slope. The second turned and fired at her. Grazing her shoulder, she fell, but didn't cry out. Alex's voice rang through her earpiece. "Fall back to the main ridge. Kira, I'm holding them off." She pressed her hand to the wound, crawled through the dirt, every rock cutting her skin. Then a hand reached down Alex, covered in ash, breathing heavy. He pulled her up, eyes checking her wound fast. "You're okay," he said. "We're not done yet." Together, they moved to the top of the ridge, fire burning behind them, smoke rising into the starless sky. From above, they saw the last 3 hunters regrouping, calling for backup. "We need to disappear," Kira said. "They're not giving up." Alex touched a remote on his wrist and pressed it, far behind them. Their old ship, now rigged with explosives, lit up like a sun. The shockwave shook the ground, throwing the hunters to the ground. "Now they'll think we're dead," he said, breathing hard. "That gives us time. But the ship will make a new life again," he said. This time with less noise. They escaped through the woods on foot, carrying what little they had. When dawn came, they found shelter in a cave overlooking a lake. Kira sat with her back against the wall, her shoulder bandaged, her eyes staring into the light. "I'm not afraid anymore," she whispered. Alex sat beside her, hands covered in dried blood. "You were never weak," he said. "You just needed a reason to fight." She looked at him, eyes filled with pain and something brighter. "You," she said, "you were my reason." He looked away, silent, but something in his heart cracked open. Maybe she wasn't just someone he saved. Maybe she was someone who had saved him too. Outside, the fire of the burning ship still lit. The sky, but in the cave, something else burned quietly. A bond stronger than chains. Born not from ownership, but from choice. Asterisk. The cave was cold. But their silence was colder. Alex sat near the fire, staring into the flames like they held a memory he couldn't forget. Kira watched him from across the room, wrapped in a blanket. Her wounded shoulder throbbed, but she didn't complain. Night before had changed everything. The burning ship, the bounty hunters, the run through the dark forest. They had survived, but something in Alex had shifted. He looked tired, not just in his body, but in his soul. "Tell me the truth," Kira said quietly. Alex didn't answer at first. He just kept staring at the flames. She stood, walked slowly over to him, and sat beside him, her eyes searching his face. "You don't talk about your past," she said, "but I know it follows you like a shadow." Alex's jaw tightened, his hands clenched on his knees. Then finally he spoke. "I was part of something once," he said. "A group of humans who didn't want to hide anymore. We fought back against slavers, pirates, bounty hunters." Kira listened, her heart beating faster. "We freed camps, rescued prisoners, burned down markets," he said. "We thought we were making a difference. What happened?" she asked, even though she already feared the answer. "They found us," Alex said, his voice heavy. "Ambushed us on a backwater moon. We fought, but they outnumbered us. We were betrayed by someone inside." His eyes darkened. "I was the only one who made it out alive." Kira covered her mouth, her throat tight with emotion. "I tried to save a group of girls in one of the cages," he said, "but the fire spread too fast. I wasn't fast enough." Tears formed in his eyes, but he blinked them away. "After that, I gave up," he whispered. "I didn't believe in saving anyone anymore. Just stayed quiet, fixed ships, passed through shadows. And then you found me," Kira said softly. Alex turned to her. "I wasn't supposed to stop at that market. I didn't mean to look into that cage, but when I saw you, I saw someone still fighting, even if you didn't know it." Kira swallowed the lump in her throat. "I didn't feel alive until you stepped into that ship," he said. "And I've been scared ever since, because I know the galaxy doesn't forgive people like me, or people like you." They sat in silence for a moment, the fire crackling, the wind howling outside. Then Alex stood, walked over to a small bag, and pulled something out. A small black chip, sealed in a silver case. "What's that?" Kira asked. "Coordinates," he replied, "to a free station. It's run by a group that protects ex-slaves, people on the run. They'll give you a new name, new home, a safe life." She stared at him, confused. "You want me to leave?" "I want you to live," he said. "Without running, without hiding." He stepped closer and handed her the chip. "You don't owe me anything, Kira. You never did." Her hand trembled as she took the chip. She looked at it, then looked at him. "But what about you?" she asked. "I'll keep moving," he said. "I'm not meant for peace, not anymore." The silence between them grew heavy. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "You're giving up on us?" Alex looked at her, pain in his eyes. "I'm giving you a chance to choose something better." Kira stood now too, her blanket falling away, her eyes wide. "You think I want peace without you?" she said. "You think I want safety without the man who gave me back my life?" He said nothing. "I was nothing," she said, stepping closer. "But you treated me like a person. You gave me food, clothes, kindness. You never touched me without reason, never looked at me like a thing." Tears ran down her face. "And now you want to walk away?" Alex looked down. "Because I'm scared I'll fail you like I failed the others." Kira reached for his hand, holding it tightly. "Then let me decide," she said. "You gave me freedom. Now let me choose how to use it." He looked at her. Silent, her voice dropped to a whisper. "I want to stay, not because I'm afraid to go, but because you make me feel alive." He pulled her into his arms then, slowly, gently, as if he still wasn't sure if he deserved it. Kira rested her head against his chest, listening to the beat of a heart that had almost given up. "You saved me," she said. Now let me save you. He held her tighter. That night, they didn't speak much. They didn't need to. Two broken souls had found each other in the middle of a violent galaxy, and this time, they weren't going to let go. The stars above them were quiet. Watching like old friends, Alex and Kira stood at the edge of the cliff, a soft wind brushing through the tall grass. Behind them, the cave was no longer a hiding place. It had become their home, a place built from pain but filled with peace. They had spent weeks there, rebuilding the small shelter with stone and scrap, growing food in the sunlight, watching each other heal. But tonight was different. Kira wore a simple white robe Alex had stitched from soft cloth they'd traded for. In a distant outpost, her hair was brushed and tied back, a single blue flower resting behind her ear. Alex wore black, neat and clean, his face freshly shaved. Hands trembling just a little, he looked at her, and the fear he had carried for so long began to melt. You're sure about this? He asked softly. Kira nodded, smiling through her tears. I was sure the day you gave me my name back. Her name, not Lot 47, not slave, not thing, but Kira. A name spoken with care, not command. They stood together under the night sky, the stars above like lights in a cathedral. There was no priest, no audience, no celebration. Only them, and that was enough. Alex cleared his throat and reached into his pocket, pulling out 2 copper rings, bent and polished from metal scrap they'd found during one of their scavenging trips. He handed one to her. Kira looked at the ring, then at him. Her voice was quiet, but steady. From the moment you gave me freedom, I stopped being afraid of the dark, she said. With you, I found light. She slid the ring onto his finger, her hands shaking slightly. Alex took the second ring and held her hand gently. I don't know what I did to deserve you, he said, but I promise I'll never stop fighting for the peace you gave me. He placed the ring on her finger, sealing their bond without law, without papers, just truth. They stood there, their foreheads touching, their breath shared. The wind whispered through the trees like a blessing. Above them, the stars moved slowly, quiet and eternal. Kira laughed through her tears. So, what now, husband? Alex chuckled. We rest, he said. Then we help someone else. She raised her eyebrows. Someone else? He pointed to the ship hidden in the valley below, repaired again, fueled and waiting. A signal blinked on the console, a silent distress call from a nearby moon, a mining camp under attack. Kira looked at the signal, then at Alex. He didn't have to ask. I'm ready, she said. Let's go help. They packed light, just weapons, supplies, and one memory of the life they'd built in the cave. As they flew away, Kira looked back at the forest one last time. This time she didn't feel like she was leaving something behind. She felt like she was carrying it with her, in her heart, in her name, in her ring. The ship sailed through space like a quiet blade, fast and hidden. Alex piloted. Kira scanned the signal. They didn't speak much, but they didn't need to, because now, they weren't two broken people trying to survive. They were one team, one family. As they neared the mining moon, the signal grew stronger. Alex looked at her and said, "Ready for a fight?" Kira smirked. "Only if we bring hope with us." And together, they descended. Not as master and slave, not as savior and victim, but as husband and wife, carrying fire and light into a world that still needed both. The galaxy would never be safe, but they didn't need safety anymore. They had each other, and that was more powerful than any weapon.